You're listening to For Wales, See Wales, the podcast about Wales and Welsh politics. If you want to be more informed about Wales and everything that goes on here, keep listening after this.
I'm going to talk to you about our long-term sponsor, Hello Starling.
Love Hello Starling.
Do you guys know what they do?
Okay, well, I know they're not a PR agency.
Which means they are a media buying and planning specialists.
Oh, yes, indeed they are.
We know them so well.
So they are really good at not just kind of cutting through the noise to get people to see your product organisation or campaign. What they are good at doing is data. Yum, yum, yum. Lovely, delicious. Yum, yum, yum.
Perfect.
Lovely, delicious data. Because the great thing about lovely, delicious data is you can see the return on your investment. You can see what your money got you. And it's so easy just to pour money into the bottomless pit of advertising. But what they do is they plan campaigns and they show you what's worked. So I was talking through some of their recent clients. Visit Warwickshire.
I have visited Warwickshire lately, you know. There you go.
I saw you there.
Exactly. We're both visiting Warwickshire.
Did you go to Warwick Castle?
I did go to Warwick Castle.
Nice.
Great.
Classic. That was a classic school trip for Midlands kids.
Love that.
Was that part of the campaign? Visit Warwickshire Castle?
I would be impressed if they had done the campaign when I was at school.
Yeah, because I didn't go to it, so that's
that
fair
would have
enough.
worked.
That makes sense.
You're actually in a minority because they reached 1.9 million people through their campaign.
Wow.
A bit closer to home in Wales, ACT, who is a training provider, they did a campaign with them where what they wanted to do is reach young people and drive awareness for the Jobs Growth Wales Plus programme. And as we know, reaching young people in a digital age they're on their phone a lot, but actually getting to them requires nuance, it requires professionals, basically. And that is what they did for ACT. There are so many others. Let's pick one at random. I've got a long list of stuff that they've done. Let's go for Visit Shropshire. So Visit Shropshire had a 200% increase in website visitors during the campaign. And this was to promote visiting Shropshire post-COVID. So if you are an organisation, whether you're a public organisation or a private organisation, if you have aims that you want to achieve and get people to just understand what you do, I really recommend you go to hellostarling.com.
What's the address again?
I'm glad you asked. It's hellostarling.com.
It's a good address.
It's a good one. Hello and welcome to For Wales, See Wales with me, Mel Owen.
Me, Robin Morgan.
And me, Will Hayward.
Below the newydd there. Happy New Year.
I know. 1st of 2026, baby.
Yeah, it's good. Back.
It feels good to be back. The decks have gone. Our Christmas jumpers. The festive season was great, but it's left us.
Yeah, it can feel very wasteful, can't it? All the Christmas jumpers. And
Yeah.
I burn them in the back garden every single year. And then I buy a new one.
That's you.
A £3 one from China. I get sent over every single year.
You hate the planet.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
2026 will be the last year.
Is Robin announcing his reform candidacy?
No.
not yet.
Not yet.
He's their big crossover.
This is the only way we're getting someone from reform on the podcast.
yeah, if
maybe.
one of us joins.
Yeah, we just get Robin on. No one else will come on.
Do you think one of us will ever go into frontline politics? As an MS? Would you ever do it yourself?
No.
It'd be a bit of a curveball. What journalists have done it in the past?
Rena Bjorworth.
Yeah. It feels like a natural step a lot of the time for journalists to step in because they know so much about that world.
Sure.
You know?
Definitely. And there's skills which are important in journalism, which are also useful in politics: ability to communicate, ability to absorb a wide brief, ability to connect with people. I'm not saying all journalists are good at that. I'm not saying all politicians are good with that. I also think a healthy dose of ego is probably something that covers both professions.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, Boris Johnson also did both things. There we go.
I'm going to push back aggressively on the idea he was really a journalist.
Oh, interesting. He wrote 2 articles at one point.
Yeah, made up the quotes.
Yeah. It's true, he didn't he?
Did make up the quotes.
You know what? We haven't made up questions from our dear listeners.
We haven't. We don't need to because, do you know what? We have had an influx and I'm so grateful. I put out a call, it would have been about a month ago now, to our Instagram followers for questions and they have delivered.
Yes, please.
They have delivered. We've had so many. So obviously we can't answer all of them. However, there were quite a few. When I was going through them again this morning, I realised we were actually kind of answered them in previous episodes as well. There were quite a few about the S&P implied and what that alliance can look at. Obviously the Swindog Dog Ep answered a lot of those, so, and some of them did kind of, were on the same theme. So I've tried to pick as wisely as I can.
Yeah, we do try and use questions, especially even the ones we get in live shows, to kind of, even if we don't answer them directly, they inform future episodes, don't they?
And we appreciate them all. Great.
We do. Should we just go into the first one?
Let's do it.
This is an interesting one, given the conversation we've just had about journalists standing. Lloyd Harvey asks, do journalists vote and how do they decide?
That's a great question.
Because it's a weird one, because obviously you will never, ever tell us who you vote for.
No.
Because it would be terrible for your career, but...
BNP.
Thank you. We all suspected it. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, the tattoo was quite revealing, wasn't it? It's got a lower back one, isn't it?
Yeah, can we say tramp stamp? We can say tramp
I feel like that's fine.
Yeah, your little tramp stamp, your little BNP. What was he called? Nick Griffin.
Nick Griffin.
His face. Love that for you. I suppose being so ingrained in it, you're so introverted into politics, it must make it really difficult to decide who to vote for, because you see the shit on all of them.
So before I was in journalism, I was super engaged in politics, really, really cared about it, really into it.
Yeah.
Although anyone listening to our Christmas quiz might not have believed that.
I think it's hard to be super engaged in the year 1400. A full 680 years before you were born, Will.
Covering politics and seeing politicians in their natural habitat close up, having text messages from them, either praising stuff you've done or querying stuff you've done, usually the latter, I think has made me just incredibly skeptical, and it's something I really fight against, to be cynical about stuff, because what you realise when you cover a country like Wales, you realise the immense challenges we've got and huge steps we need to take to make Wales what it should be. And you look at the offering of, I'd actually say all parties, and you think, well, this all falls woefully short of where we'd want to be.
Right.
So obviously we do vote. You're politically engaged. You're going to have an opinion. What I have always tried to do is I always show my workings when I give opinions.
Yeah.
So when I give opinions as a journalist, I say, this is why I think this is, or if I'm just reporting, I say, this person said this is in response to this. So yes, journalists have opinions. Yes, I imagine proportionally political journalists vote more than your average person, because it'd be weird if we didn't.
Yeah.
But I would say that I'm less excited by politics than I was before I was a journalist, because for me, politics used to be just this amazing vehicle for change. And now I look at it and I think, oh my God.
Yeah, you see the sausage, how it's getting made, right?
It must make it really difficult. It must make it... Do you feel like you are picking the less worse option?
I know all of the main protagonists in this story. Like, I know there's certain politicians I feel like I wouldn't consider anyone in politics a kind of a close friend, because I think that's kind of compromises you and you want to keep that professional distance. I've got people I like and I know. The closer you get to the system rather than individuals, the less I've become convinced that any meaningful change can happen, because of how entrenched certain systems are and how under-resourced a lot of it is. So I would say, actually, without being completely depressing, I think my excitement to vote is probably diminished.
That's really interesting. I think from a comedian's point of view, I think when you sometimes see like a comic perform on stage, you won't laugh, but you'll go, yeah, I can see what they did there. You become like very sort of oversensitized to it all, don't you?
100%.
When we talk about sort of change within politics, we had Leanne Wood on the pod, who obviously was in frontline politics and is now trying to do change from another angle. Can you see that as something that you'd ever sort of get into, kind of whether it is quangos or whether it is something kind of outside of that MS type role?
I think I'd really struggle to be working for any one of them myself now.
Right.
In terms of vehicle of change, I really do believe in like journalism and media as a positive way to make a difference. And without giving away things that are going to happen after the election, I've got some big plans for what I'm going to look to do after the election. Going to carry on with the newsletter, but there's some other things I think would help in Wales that I'm looking to get involved in.
It's a new musical.
Yeah.
Love that. Senedd, the musical. Oh, would it be like a jukebox musical? I hate those.
Oh, yeah, with Katy Perry songs. What?
Yeah, exactly. Why are they there?
What?
So annoying. Please don't do that
I won't do that
anymore.
Will is gutted.
He's so good. He's like,
opens the laptop and deletes Google Docs. I think journalism's a really exciting way to do things. I really like that you can be professionally mischievous, and maybe I don't really have the courage to be a politician.
Interesting.
I think it's a very brave thing to do. I think it's also a supremely self-confident thing to do. And maybe I don't have that level of self-assurance. But I think the current Senate system diminishes autonomy and individual thought to such an extent that I can't think of anything I'd rather do less.
Would you want to?
No,
in a different world. Say if you weren't in what you're doing now, in a different world, is it something you think that you would have liked to have done?
No, I don't think I've got the level of. I think that doing comedy has helped me get over a lot of stuff in terms of like desperate to be liked. I think, and sort of like being, but I think I take criticism quite hard.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't think I'm cut out for it in that kind of mold.
Sure.
Melanie?
Yeah. I mean, I've been blacklisted by one party. I don't think anybody would take me. Do you know what I mean? I
think Plaid would take you in a heartbeat.
Fact.
No, I don't think, not to bring the tone down, I don't think it's a safe world for women at all. It's horrid. I've obviously been, and it's been a while now since, but I've been in that world and I've seen it for what it is and the cold light of day, and it's horrid. And I would not... No.
Political parties are nasty places.
Yeah. And I don't think that is, obviously, I was more kind of in the Welsh Conservative side. I don't think that is unique to the Welsh Conservatives. I've seen people on the other sides treat each other horribly as well. I don't know. There's not a fee in the world that could make me do that.
What I really like about journalism and like what I'm trying to do with the newsletter is the idea of building a team and having everyone kind of having a goal and really working to stuff and being unequivocally on each other's side. And seeing politicians and political parties, quite often... people you're working closest with, you see them as rivals, not partners.
Yeah.
And I would struggle with that because I like being part of a team.
Going back to the question slightly with to journalist vote, imagine, there's a lot of sort of discourse online of like, who does Laura Koonsberg vote for and that kind of stuff. And I think, you get the kind of, everyone's been, whenever we do sort of topical comedy, I think if we get criticised for being left wing and right wing, then we're probably doing something right? Because it's, a plague on all the houses. Yeah. But imagine if you were stood next to Laura Koonsberg at the polling booth, you would be like,
I genuinely would not know who you'd vote for. I wouldn't know.
Me neither at this point.
Yeah, which is fair,
I think when people talk about like journalists having opinions, it's like, well, if you're a surgeon and you support Liverpool, you're going to be able to operate on someone who's an Everton fan. It's professionalism. My only editorial slant I try and have is being pro Wales. Yeah. And I don't mind saying that I think that devolution is a good thing. But I also have time. If someone was to say, actually, I don't think devolution works because of X, Y, and Z, I wouldn't dismiss them out of hand. But I do have a bit of a revulsion to people who I think use Wales's ability to have its own say in its affairs as a political football for their own personal advancement. I find that a bit icky. But generally, I'm pretty... I don't know how I would vote.
When you started that analogy, I really thought you said if I were a sturgeon. And I was like, I don't know enough about fish to get the rest of this anecdote.
Someone's been reading his book about orcas, hasn't he? And smashing that.
Thank you so much for reading it.
Should we have another question?
Let's do it. Next question. Now, I don't know their actual name. This actually could be their real name, although I doubt it. But their Instagram handle is Chunky Hill Runner. I imagine that's also on their birth certificate. That's their government name, as rappers say. Yeah. Do parts of Wales north of Brecon have the same issue with Cardiff that Cardiff does with Westminster? I think that's a really good question.
That's really, really interesting. Yeah, seeing as sort of Cardiff as the big city and where the power and the money lies.
Yeah. Well, I put a TikTok out a couple of weeks ago. I'd been to London and I put a TikTok, tongue-in-cheek about the fact that the phrase London wanker exists for a reason.
Yeah.
And a couple of people commented to be like, we're in North Wales and this is how we feel about people in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And I just thought that this kind of does tie in, I think more on the political slant of like, do they feel like Cardiff isn't listening to them? Everything's Cardiff-centric.
From a politics point of view, it was in the last few years that you started to hear, it was when Westminster bubble started to come, I heard people within Welsh politics say, the people in Cardiff Bay.
Yes.
It was really branding kind of like this elitism was like, it's down Cardiff Bay, isn't it? With all this expensive stuff. There's a bills there. like it's interesting, isn't it? But no, this is my hometown. I've spent the majority of my life here. I think it's hard for me to be objective about it because I've never lived. I know my dad, who was born in the Rhondda, when he goes back up, sometimes it's like, oh, he's the one who moved to Cardiff. So there is a sort of like a thing of like, oh, look at you. Big Cardiff man, is it? So I think there is that. Whether it is the same thing about Westminster, I don't know. But then I wouldn't know the answer to that because I'm too in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put that probably is a fair assumption. This is where the power lies. This is where the money is. This is where. I did a gig in Wrexham a little while ago, and I said, but I think one of my opening things was like, I'm from Cardiff, where we get all the bits, all the bits of money. That's where I've come from. Thank you for that.
Yeah, were they like, yeah, you do. Actually.
Yeah, they were like, actually.
What about you as an Abigail? What do you think?
Yes. I think there is an element of that, and I'm thinking about it more. I suppose I grew up in like that farming community, and there is a real distrust of Cardiff Bay. I think that is such a thing. The stuff with the farmers this year, not helped at all. And I definitely do think that it's distrust. I think there's an element of that. I think they see again these guys in blazers and suits going in, making decisions about our lives and they've never lived them. I think there's an element of that. Where in Ceredigion generally Ben Lake is very popular, and obviously so he's an MP, and I think there's an attitude of Ben Lake sticks it to the man in Westminster on our behalf. Ellen Jones very popular again. I don't know if Ceredigion feels seen in the Senedd. I think there's an element, Ellen Jones is a llywydd as well, so can't exactly be fighting Ceredigion's corner too much, and we talked to her about that balance when we had the Royal Welsh ep. But I think there is definitely within the farming community a distrust of Westminster and Cardiff Bay, and the Labour government in Cardiff have not helped that. How that would change if we get a Plaid Cymru government, I do not know. But I imagine it will kind of be treated as good news, but whether Plaid can keep their promises is another thing.
Lots of listening exercises, I think. That's what
they love a little listening exercise.
They love a listen.
I think you guys have nailed that. The only thing I would add, I think Wales is probably over-centralised in terms of decision-making. I think, and I said recently that I don't think Betsy Cadwallader the Health Board in North Wales would allowed to have been the state it is for so long if it had been a South Wales Health Board.
Right, yeah.
Because of its proximity to the corridors of power means that change is sought more actively.
Yeah.
I think one thing we do need to talk about with regard to in Wales is cities across the world are successful. And if you've got 300,000 people in one place, it is easier to deliver public services and it's easier to get that kind of critical mass of resources, money, expertise, infrastructure. It's just easier to do it in cities. I mean, and some people will be shouting at the speaker right now saying, well, yeah, but Cardiff gets all the money. But there's a reason why cities across the world are doing really well. Comparatively. So I think Wales needs a successful capital. I think it's important that Cardiff improves, but I think what's bad for Wales actually is that our capital city is actually, when you compare it to other UK cities, isn't actually doing that well. It's doing well compared to Wales, but it's not doing that well compared to other areas. I think if you are in Wales, you can easily argue for the decentralisation of decision-making and money. I don't think you want to diminish the quality of like some of your economic engines at the expense of that, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive things. So yeah, I think if I was in other parts of Wales, I would be like, well, Cardiff's getting like everything, and as someone living in Cardiff, I'd go, well, we can actually make this quite a bit better. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Do you think then that having a capital, being a powerhouse, is beneficial to the rest of the country, but that Cardiff really could be a better powerhouse, and if it were, it could then serve the other areas better? I
mean, it's definitely possible to have a really like dynamic, fast-growing capital and that generate revenue that you then use to help other parts of the UK. I think the challenge for Wales doing that is money generated in Cardiff doesn't go into the Welsh government coffers, which then is used directly to help other parts of Wales, because it's not how the devolved settlement works. But also, even if it Cardiff is not such a huge generator of wealth. I mean, you only have to look at the amount of top-rate taxpayers you have in Wales. It's tiny. You could probably, if you go on to, because the Welsh government gets a cut of the top rate of income tax, you can actually almost work out how many top-rate payers we've got. And you could probably go through and go, okay, there's this many Cardiff City players, there's this many university chancellors, there's this many people who play for Swansea, and there's this many top-level rugby players. We've got this many kind of high-level consultants, a few lawyers. Yeah, that's where they all are.
Yeah.
So Cardiff is not this huge economic engine which is just failing to share the wealth. It's an averagely doing well city. What we really need is a much better way of dividing up wealth in the UK.
You know, when towards the end of last year, Eleanor Morgan announced this big sort of investment push of like invest in Wales. What's she talking about there? Because if she's asking for investment in Wales, would the Welsh government get that in the coffers? If, you know, business XYZ did that, or is this a bit of a muddy water just because of how the funding of Wales works?
So we're going to talk about this in more detail in a future episode because it ties into something I'm doing in my book around how Wales is funded and the money that Welsh government gets. So Welsh government gets a cut of income tax in Wales. And the idea behind that was to say, well, we want to put an onus on the Welsh government to increase income tax income because then they will get more money. So actually it's a way of encouraging the Welsh government to drive economic development. The problem is a lot of the levers for actually getting investment aren't in Wales's hands anyway. And the other issue is actually Wales has gained quite a lot more from because of income tax. And so they've done quite well out of a devolution of income tax, the Welsh government. But the reason that they've done well out of it is because Rachel Reeves and previous chancellors have consistently frozen the income tax bands, which drags poor people who weren't paying tax into income tax. And Wales has loads of people who weren't paying tax at all who are now paying a bit of income tax. So in a very, very simple terms, we'll go into this in more detail. It looks like the Welsh government has done really well in terms of driving people to have increased incomes. But actually all we've done is just tax poorer people.
Yeah, right.
And Wales has got a lot of them.
On just a slight kind of sidestep on that, but I think it is kind of interesting because it's almost the reverse. In Welsh language media, and I'm probably not making any friends by saying this, but they all think I'm a pain in the arse anyway, so just dig in. North Wales is so overrepresented. It is so overrepresented, and it is such a source of frustration to the rest of us. And there's a lot of
Big comments.
Come at me, come on, like me taking strays. But it is wild that it is like the complete reverse. And they say, well, you know, possibly there are more Welsh language speakers in the north. But, you know, if we're going to grow them in other areas of the country, those places need to also be seen.
Yeah, representation across the board.
Yeah.
Right?
So on the one hand, you'd say you've got the BBC building in Cardiff. You know, I will say I went to the BBC in London a couple of weeks ago. Dog shit compared to the one in Cardiff.
Which
broadcasting house?
Old or new?
It looked ancient. It was that big round one.
Yeah.
The semicircle.
Yeah, they got new BH on the right hand side and like all that, and then they got the old one, which is like pretty.
It was the one on just off of like Oxford Street in there.
Yeah, you got both of them right there, and they're sort of like connected.
Oh, okay.
But half of it is
we're used to the old Glossy McGee down in Central Square.
Glossy McGee.
It is great.
It is nice there.
But then the voices that you hear, the accents that you hear going through there, coffee's everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, so this one is from Harry Wallace. Why do some politicians and voters in Wales have less respect or general dislike for the Senedd when other devolved governments do not tend to get that? Unless I just don't come across it, I don't see many people calling for the Scottish Parliament to be abolished. A good point, Harry, to be fair, and something that is, you know, we I suppose we have touched upon it before, but it does continue, especially the closer we get to an election.
Yeah, I've never seen any sort of like Scottish parties like rallying for the abolition of their parliament. But equally, I'm not that.
No, maybe there is an abolish Holyrood party.
Maybe there is a shit where you eat party. I don't know. Maybe
it is a really weird Welsh thing that some people in Wales don't believe their nation should have a parliament. That's one of the weirdest things I found when I came to Wales. That
did it? Yes, it seemed weird from the outside.
It was mad. Like, this person who's like would define themselves as really proudly Welsh was like, we don't want that. But let's let the guys in sitting on the green benches, sword lengths apart in
Is that
Westminster.
the historical ties between Wales and England and Wales, like legal systems and, like the cricket team, like the England and Wales have historically had a bit more of thing compared to England and Scotland? Is that an issue?
I think there's a lot at play. I think obviously historical elements come into it as well. I think there's a self-confidence element around it as well. I think there's an identity issue around it. I don't think you'll find as many young people saying we shouldn't have a parliament in Wales, and a big part of that is because Welsh people overwhelmingly skew Welsh in their identity, whereas someone who is British might not see that. I think as well, like coming out of like World War II, that was a real like unifying this idea of Britishness and we're all together was really, really powerful. I also think within political parties, people who would, especially within Labour, people who would define themselves as more Devo skeptic tend to be, not always, but tend to be on more of the right of the party. So it's essentially become a dividing line, which is within a different dividing line. I think ultimately it comes down to history and self-confidence. I think it's actually a conversation which certain parties are desperate to push forward. I think, like, in terms of how demographics are going, I don't think it's going to be something we're talking about as much in 10 years.
This isn't as unique a conversation to Wales as we think it is either.
Really?
When we look at, and I don't mean within the UK, but if we, and I'm trying to be very careful here because I cannot stand it when people say things like Wales is the first ever colony. It's not, okay? Let's not even compare the two. But when you do look at previous colonies of the British Empire, those conversations are very real there as well. And whilst you will have people who really want independence and stuff like that, there will be the others who are like, no, I think it serves us better to be in that brand and so on, and talk themselves down, So like I was reading a book recently about Nigeria and how a big issue that they have, and it reminded me so much of us here in Wales about, saying things like, oh, we are doing well for us.
Right.
And I think we do that a lot in Wales. Like, no, fair play. We're doing well for Wales.
Yeah, punching above our weight.
Exactly. And that, was kind of being discussed in this book about Nigeria as well, and how they were like, no, let's actually try and fight on the same level as everybody else. And I was like, oh, this isn't unique to Wales. But it is that lack of confidence. I think you're so right. But, the question was very much about like the Senedd, and you don't have to be pro-independence to be pro the Senedd and want its existence,
Yeah, sure.
This one is from Miguel van Launder. And the question is a great strong name.
Yeah.
Miguel van Launder.
Yeah, it's no chunky hill runner, but it is good.
No.
It is good. Does the Welsh Government have enough powers to make a real difference to economic growth in Wales? I suppose that does feed off the last question, where people think, well, is there any point me voting in the Senedd? Because they can't really do anything.
Go on, Will. It feels like you're fit to burst.
The big levers that could drive economic development, so macroeconomic policy, is not within their gift.
No.
Wales does really well out of the Barnett formula when it comes to money for public services. So money for education, money for health. Wales gets £1.20 for every pound spent in England. Now, Wales has a bigger need. Plaid Cymru will argue that Wales, that should be getting more than that because of the poverty in Wales. But the things that Wales does really bad out of in terms of the UK are the things that aren't devolved. So stuff like R&D spending especially. Money that goes to funding high-paid jobs in universities. That's going to that kind of triangle of Cambridge, Oxford, London. And Wales gets money to essentially maintain the status quo of, for want of a better word, poverty, low productivity, and low economic growth. We get money to basically stay as we are. We get money to be sustained in a state of poverty. What we don't get is that R&D funding, that big, well-paid investments in both infrastructure, so rail, and in R&D, so research and development. We don't get that. We get a fraction. I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head, but I think it's about, we are like 5% of the population, we get 2% of the R&D funding.
Right.
When we look at that, those are the things that move the needle in terms of wealth and wealth creation and getting sustained, long-term, well-paid jobs which build core industries in Wales. And the Welsh government just doesn't have those economic levers. The people who do have the economic levers are the UK government, and they don't spend proportionally Wales's population share in Wales. So Wales is condemned by these decisions to stay I believe, poor economically. This doesn't mean I'm giving the Welsh Government a free pass. Have they left no stone unturned in their search for economic development in Wales? Absolutely not. The Drakeford administration, especially in my view, had a bit of an ideological reticence towards business and wealth creation.
Yeah.
I'm not giving them a free pass on it, but ultimately you could get the most pro-business, pro-economic growth government in, I hear you, Leonard Morgan, not you, in all the world could run Wales, but they're not going to be able to get Wales to a point of parity with areas of England because that money just isn't forthcoming from the UK government.
Yeah, it's still got the stabilisers on, so it's just sort of hard to...
So my book, Who Cares About Wales, comes out in 3 months' time. And part of the research for that, and the thing that shocked me the most, was how entrenched Wales's deprivation is. Because the current system, imagine it's a person who's been poisoned. It stops us from dying, but it doesn't allow us to be cured. That is my view of the current system in Wales, is that we're essentially kept on life support, but in a perpetual doom loop.
Why then should I listen to somebody like the Rena Corn going, we'll change this? We can do so much better. Like, is there a couple of stones left unturned that they could potentially do? If this is the system that we're in, you know, there will be people going, well, there is no point us really changing the government then.
Well, there's a reason why Scotland have such a better deal than Wales. Part of the reason is that historic situation that ultimately Scotland was independent before it joined the Union, whereas Wales as a concept, as a thing in and of itself wasn't. But it's also because the threat of Scottish independence is that kind of sword of Damocles hanging over UK governments, which means that Scotland just doesn't get shafted in the same way. Great British Energy, where's it based? Scotland. You know, they wouldn't have considered putting that in Wales. So I think that Plaid's argument, and I'm not here saying you should vote Plaid, but Plaid's argument will be that the very fact you are electing us means that we have got a stronger hand to make demands from Westminster. That will be what they will argue. I actually think that quite a lot of the time, I mean, they've said that they're going to bring in a Welsh Development Agency, which is what we used to have. I was at an event recently where Reen Mapworth was deliberately trying to court the business community. Yeah, there are stones left to be turned over. And I mean, I think even Welsh Labour could be doing better.
Yeah.
But I think long-term prosperity can't be made in this current system.
Well, on that happy note, great ep, guys.
Yeah, so we'll be doing a crowdfunder for Wales. We'll put a link in the comments.
If you'd like to donate stones to turn over.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but also this is why, and I'm not using this as an opportunity to gas us up, but this is why we need to raise awareness about these matters, because these that needs to be known by the public. The public needs to know that and make an informed decision whoever they choose to vote for is not our business, but as long as they know those things going in.
Which bits are devolved and which bits aren't,
Exactly.
and you know, the decisions of which, you know, voter X is complaining about this, that we can't do anything about.
Yeah.
So let's inform ourselves and vote with that.
Literally being angry with the thing which is really the problem is quite a big step forward.
Sure.
How many times do you see, especially Conservative politicians, say, the Welsh Government has absolutely failed businesses in Wales. And I think you can point to some decisions the Welsh Government have made, which have made it harder for businesses. But ultimately, if you think, I'm going to vote for the Conservatives because they're going to fix that, we're not even talking about the actual problem. The fact that the system bakes in crap funding for Wales, unless you are talking about solving that problem, you're not serious about solving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're serious about solving it, and that's why we're doing this.
We're going to do it. We're going to fix it this year.
Yes, by May.
By May, we're launching a political party.
We keep saying, you keep joking about it.
Oh no.
So we're just going to have to.
Not ready for this.
So which one is Zara Sultana? Which one is Corbyn?
Oh yeah, I think it would be like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll be Corbs.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
be Sultana.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. And we'll fall out by 3:00.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll be John McDonnell.
Was he in your party?
Yeah, he's got to be, hasn't he?
Surely.
Him and Corbs, always together, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's irrelevant there.
They're like the Checker brothers, aren't they?
Bananas in pyjamas.
Thank you very much for those questions, everybody.
Yeah, and also do keep sending I do keep a log of all of them.
Yeah.
So whenever we do another Q&A app, we do have a log of them. So please do keep sending them in.
Cool. So we will see you next week.
We will see you next week. I cannot wait.
Yes, looking forward to it.
I've been Mel Owen.
I've been Robin Morgan.
And I've been interrupting Will Hayward.
Bye.
It was nice.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.